Tacoma from Fullbright.
Yeah, I give it an 8.25.
There we go. Tacoma from Fullbright, everybody.
I think we're all pretty on the same page that we like it.
Oh,
Yes, no?
interesting.
No.
No?
Dan Tack.
Okay.
I had I'd say I'm not on the like side, but I'm not on the man, it's terrible, don't play it. But we'll talk about this later. I wanted to let you say the cool stuff first, but
Well, I think before we even get to the cool stuff, I am going to be strict on a no spoiler policy.
Oh, absolutely.
That is all this game is, and
Definitely.
so let's
we'll
very
be
much
light
err on
on-
the
be
side
very
of
careful
nothing.
Of that.
Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
But yeah,
That's a good
basically,
call.
this is Fullbright's next game. The makers have gone home.
Yeah.
So it's probably the most different thing they could have done thematically anyway. I
Yeah.
mean, you're still exploring a kind of like abandoned space, but yeah, it takes place in space this time. You are going to retrieve an AI there, and you're basically uncovering this mystery of what happened to this space crew that went missing.
For the first time, it's an abandoned space station. Have your mind around that, ladies and gentlemen. But it, much like On Home, I mean, a core of the game is reading a lot and learning a bit about these people's personalities through reading and listening to them this time around.
So there's
through
one thing.
augmented reality.
That's right.
One thing that I thought was really interesting about so you mentioned before, like, oh, it's an abandoned space station. What could have happened? And it's one of the things that I actually found kind of interesting about this is that when we first went to go see this game for the cover story, like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
Kim and Wade and I went, and that was kind of the story hook at the time. Was like, okay, you're here on this station. You don't know what happened to the crew, and like there's a mystery to figure out there. And I think this adheres to no spoilers because this is like the opening minutes of the game.
Sure.
You are approaching Space Station Tacoma, and you're told right off the bat, like, all right, you're approaching Space Station Tacoma. What's happened to the crew? They've been evacuated. They're not here. Okay, go.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that if you think this is the kind of game, and that's not to say that there aren't other things to figure out and piece together and stuff, but like if you think that the hook of this game is you show up on an abandoned space station, what happened to the crew? It's your job to find.
The end result.
You do.
I don't feel like you totally do, though.
Yeah, I don't feel like you do either. And this is tough to talk about without spoilers. I feel like you're told something, but that you have a.
It's more complicated than you think.
I mean,
the narrator is not trustworthy necessarily.
There's an element of
that's
doubt.
it.
There's an element of doubt to it for sure. But like, I feel like the game does not dangle this in front of you as this big mystery of like, what happened to the crew?
It's more just learning the personality of the crew.
Yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
is less about that and more about like the relationships between them and how they face this like impending doom.
Yeah.
Which I think is well done for the most part.
Yeah. What was the most interesting part of the game for you, Elise?
I really enjoyed the medic character, Sarah.
Oh,
I think
sure.
she was probably my favorite. Well, her and Nat were two of my favfavorites. But
She gets a lot of AR
really-
screen time.
Yeah, I really liked Sarah and like her conversations with Odin, the station AI guy. Just because like it's just really interesting to see like how self-aware is he and talking about like, oh, I've never met any other AIs before and
Yeah.
trying to
Dives
figure
into the
out
nature of
those.
AI a little bit.
I liked that a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, I think the most novel thing about this game is how you're interacting with the crew. So it's a bizarre system where it memorized where these characters were, they're being traced and whatnot, and then it's projecting a hologram. So they
Right.
all look like
Blobs.
like the early iPhone, iPod commercial silhouettes.
All like brightly colored silhouettes.
Which is super smart to give everybody their distinct color, and they
Yes.
also have like a logo of their
Like,
job on
I'm
their
the
back.
engineer. I'm the medic.
It would have been so easy to make this just a mush of people, but it's so nice and distinct to be like, okay, the orange lady. I remember how this
Oh
goes.
no, for sure. And I think honestly the most unique thing about Tacoma isn't necessarily where it's taking place or its story. It's how it tells its story.
Yes.
Like the fact that you have that timer at the bottom of the screen that you can rewind and pause and like fast forward simulations, follow different holograms to different parts of the ship is like very amazing and fascinating.
And it's one of those things like, oh, this is such a good idea. I don't know what other game setting would allow for an idea this
Right.
efficient for storytelling. And it is,
Yes.
so it's like within the space station, there's pockets where you can rewind and fast forward through this little sequence to see where everybody is. And then the game is just an immersive experience, like an immersive theater experience,
That's
I should say, right?
exactly what it is. It's like interactive theater. You're like a fly on the wall while all these different things are happening. And, like, say there's a group talking and then one of them goes off and has a panic attack or something. You can go and see that unfold.
I made Elise take the reference out of a first draft of her review, but she mentioned Sleep No More.
Yeah.
Yes, which is like a Macbeth, Take on Macbeth interactive theater performance.
Yeah. We talked about immersive theater, I think, in actually the first episode of the rebooted podcast. Tim and I did quite a bit because I had some in Minneapolis, and Cork and I fell in love. We saw Drown Man from the Sleep No More producers.
Punch Drunk, right?
Yes, exactly. And there's even a Sleep No More reference in one of the emails within Tacoma. So it's very obvious that they're tipping their cap. It's like, we know what this is.
Oh, they do.
Which it's an awesome idea. Do you feel like then it boils down too much into, I'm just going to sit here and listen to these people talk? It feels almost like a less active investigation than Gone Home in some ways.
I don't know. I mean, you're still moving around and inhabiting a space, right?
Yeah.
While you follow those different holograms and stuff. I guess it would have been nice, like, to have more interactivity with some things. Like, I liked how there were some locked compartments and stuff where you'd have to go and find the keys and stuff. And there's, little fun little things like playing basketball and the pool stuff. I think I would have liked to have more of that, maybe. Yeah. I did like those little tidbits, and the attention to detail is crazy.
Yeah, for sure. There's certainly moments of, a lot of the game was, this is a really brilliant way to convey this story. And then the other part of it is, it kind of just feels like I'm just sitting here listening to this this play going on.
Standing around for the most part and just watching something unfold around you. But I don't know. I appreciated it. I thought it was pretty neat.
Yeah.
And this is something I want to talk about real quick. Like, because I think I'm thinking about, like, why didn't I like this game as much as I liked, this genre I normally don't like at all anyway, right? But
don't say the name of the genre or Joe's
I'm not going
head
to. I don't want to get into that conversation. Games like this, okay?
Yes.
Gone Home likes.
So I really liked Edith Finch, right?
Yeah,
and I started wondering, like, what did that do for me that this didn't? And it was, I guess, just sort of how it interacts with you. I felt like such more of a passive player here. Even trying to get into the lurks, I really liked how you could rewind stuff, and that was like one of the only things I liked. But, like,
really
pulling those threads, but at the same time, I felt like, because it's on rails, right? You are stuck. You have to go to this place, then that place. There's really no way to break that.
On rails is a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
I mean,
really, you got to go to. It's really got to do one zone to go to another zone.
It's a pretty linear progression.
Yeah, but within the zone, I mean, it's like, okay, here's a space, explore it.
You have freedom in those zones.
You do, but it's still A to B to C to D, right? There's like little things that you can find in each one if you pull the thread and get the codes and stuff like that.
It's shaped like a beaded necklace.
No, I think it's just like a straight line. But
okay,
that's just my interpretation of it, and I just felt there was very little interactivity. Like, you could theoretically, I don't know why you do this, but you could actually, in the segments, just attach your thing and go to sleep, and you wake up and that area would be done, right?
Oh, is that right? I was still confused about what was triggering the progress.
Now, I can't say for sure, but I watched, I tested it for like 10 minutes and the meter kept going. So I don't know if there's a hard stop on that and you have to go look at the stories, or... I
think it's one of those games where you get as much out of it as you put into it.
For sure. I mean...
I think it's fine.
And I rushed through it. I was one of those things where I accidentally saw credits roll. I was like, oh, I shouldn't have seen this yet. I'm not fully understanding what's going on.
You had to know you were going for credits at that point.
I wasn't 100% sure. I thought there might be something. Not that the ending is abrupt out of nowhere. Like, I should have thought that. But anyways, I think it is one of those games. Elise is right. Like, if you're going to buy this game and play it, scour it. Like, take the time to understand, if you're interested in it, at least, like, every nook and cranny, really savor it, because that's the experience.
Yeah, and I think Elise and I think it took us about 5 hours, you said?
Yeah.
I feel like I was pretty thorough.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the Edith Finch is like different interactions you'd have in each thing, even though that's linear as well. But each vignette was very different and had a different interaction for the player to do.
Yeah.
I felt in this case I didn't have that going on.
Right. I think Edith Finch is like really good at giving that variety, and like each sequence there felt so different from the other, whereas this is the same mechanic through the whole game, right?
Yeah.
Which is I don't think is a bad thing, but they're different.
Yeah, I mean, there's still different things that you're investigating. I mean,
Yeah.
on the silhouettes, then it has the interesting thing where it'll have like a little key spot. Like, okay, you in this area, if you click on it, then you can maybe read their emails, read their texts. There's different things to read to some degree. It's not just purely watching these people talk.
Yeah, I mean, it's very voyeuristic for sure, but yeah, you can see all those conversations, and they basically had no privacy.
But I think that's the key, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that voyeuristic is a good word for it, but you keep saying about like investigating, and I just did not get an investigative feel from
Investigate
this
their
game.
Personalities.
Yeah, I mean, so like really what this game is, the narrative you're exploring is who these characters are, what their relationships were, what they were doing on this station, and that's all sort of delivered to you through this mechanism of like, what were they doing in the final moment, like, you know, what was happening on that space station before they, you know, whatever happened. So
right. Were you moved by the stories, Joe?
I mean, I liked the characters. I wouldn't say that there was like,
I don't think it's one of those stories that's gonna keep you on the edge of your seat. Like, it's just it's more mundane, but like still engaging. You know, it's slow paced, but it's engaging. It's a character driven story.
Yeah.
Go for it, Joe.
I don't feel like it's a character interaction story. To me, it's like character. And again, I enjoyed this. So I don't mean for these to like sound like complaints, but it really, like, I think of character driven, and I feel like I did not have that sort of drive to like, oh, I really want to find out about these people. Like I liked the voyeuristic element of it, and like piecing all of that together.
Being a creeper is great,
but I didn't feel like I was being propelled through this game, you know,
by the personalities
or anything. I felt like which again, I thought that this is an interesting way to tell a story about it's like, hey, you're on the space station, wander around, piece things together, and when you're ready, you go. And that's sort of.
I mean, I was still wondering the whole time, like, okay, so what happened to them, and what was the final result? Like, I wanted that to be wrapped up personally.
Yeah, you went on the cover story years ago.
Yeah,
and you were talking in the office, at least, just like you were struck by how different the game is now.
Oh yeah, super different.
Yeah, I mean, and I went back and looked at some of the videos and like, oh, that's right. There's the whole like weird vertical chamber where you're like launching yourself. It seemed much more. I don't know what the best word. A little more. Physics-based, a little more exploration focused in that original version of the game.
The version we saw is like I wouldn't call them necessarily puzzles, but it like it wasn't just you walk into a room and the narrative starts playing.
Yeah.
It was more like you had to interact with the environment in different ways to trigger those things. And there was like an anti-gravity boot that you'd jump from the floor to the ceiling and like go a little access way. The whole premise was different too, because like as it is right now, Tacoma is like some sort of like commercial shipping facility or something. Mm-hmm. But in the version, like when we saw the game years ago, the concept behind it was like Tacoma was sort of like a way station for tourists that were going to the moon. So the staff that was there wasn't like a commercial shipping staff.
Yeah.
They were just sort of like the maintenance staff of the station that was sort of keeping it running while these tourists sort of came in and out.
That's right. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, just like little things like that I mean, I think ultimately Fullbright found a good way to focus a story and really, like, I mean, like Elise was saying, really make it about the characters.
Yeah.
And sort of remove some of the extraneous stuff from the edges of the story and the setting that they weren't really able to like fully explore or realize.
And I think they do a good job too of making it about the characters and making the space station feel lived in. Even if it just comes down to like handwritten notes,
just
like, hey, head over this way for this thing.
Sex toys.
The amount of
exactly. That's what I'm hinting at. Thank you for beating around the bush there, Joe.
Especially like I thought it was really cool how when you go into like someone's personal quarters, you will see this kind of like fuzzy, very old hologram from them from like 6 months ago, and you can just. I don't know why I really like that detail of like what they do on their own and like in their daily lives, and it just
you
gives a very lived in sense.
Yeah, for sure. And you hinted at it earlier, but I think the most striking part is just that immersive theater experience again.
I think so.
But I was gonna say like that idea of like following a character and getting to see them kind of like by themselves, like even psyching themselves up sometimes and then going out and interacting with other people and like if you're a creeper and just like rewind it and play that again, like it is interesting.
I also thought it was like everything feels kind of connected. Like people will regroup, or like they'll hear something going on in another room. Like I don't know, and then you can like, oh, like what happened in that room, and then you can go and play that out.
For sure.
Very much liked that a lot.
Yeah, it's not like a bunch of stories radiating out from one hub. It's a lot of like lines intersecting. And
exactly.
Cool.
Yes.
I remembered what I was going to say before.
Oh, please.
And this is again more towards like the mystery or being propelled by the game. It's like, can I spoil Gone Home or just a little bit of it? Okay, so I just remember in Gone Home, there's just the sinking feeling of dread I had when I was about to go into that attic.
Yeah.
And be like, I don't know what I'm going to find, but I think my sister committed suicide up there. You know, like that was a very affecting moment for me in Gone Home, and like what tied that whole experience together for me. And like, I don't think Tacoma has a moment like that. And again, I don't necessarily mean to level that as some huge criticism, but for people who played Gone Home and are expecting something like that, it's a little bit more of like, like a voyeuristic, a little more relaxed, engage at will sort of experience.
Mundane in space.
It's a less dramatic story.
That's weird, because the topics it's dealing with.
I don't know. Because it is about unraveling that mystery, right? But you are really focusing on the relationships, and you are focusing about how they deal with, their impending death and things like that. So I don't know. I don't know how to put it exactly.
Dan, how do you feel like it compares to Gone Home?
Like I said, I didn't like Gone Home either.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was so blown away by, I'd hate to bring it up again, but Edith Finch was one of the games in the genre that really caught me and said, I'm going to keep giving these games a try, because I really liked that experience. This one, I don't know. Maybe I am just an emotionless, horrible person.
Oh, God, I've been saying that for so long.
I know.
Finally.
But I was not connecting with any of the character stories particularly. I just thought it was, I'd like, here's your personal effects. Okay, neat. I need a motivation, right? I need to.
So you were the AI walking
doing a
through
thing.
this environment.
I do think the story wraps up in a very satisfying way. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to. Man, I wish we could talk about the story.
Were you moved by the end, Dan?
Not. In fact, I liked the thing that happened before the end. That was the only part of the thing where I really was like, ooh, that's something. Something's happening here.
If I
like happening.
I want a time lapse of your face, Dan, while playing this game, because I'd imagine it's just.
It was just a blank
just
stare.
An Easter Island head.
for like 2 hours. It was basically like
a slightly raised eyebrow near the end.
I don't know. I think Tacoma's for a certain type of person.
Sure.
I think I've always liked slow stories about people, so like it was engaging to me.
Yeah. 825.
825.
What didn't you like about it?
I guess, I think they could have done a bit of a better job. I think Joe brings this up about how all those threads go into the mystery.
Okay.
I think that could have been handled better. I like how it wrapped up, but it does feel a little hasty, I guess. What else? And I think I brought this up before. More interactivity, I think, would have been cool.
Pool's not enough.
Yeah. So I think those were the two major things for me. I think everything else I liked a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like they do a lot with the sort of like story situations they have, like the sequences that you're able to like rewind and fast forward through and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't count, but like there aren't a ton of those. Yeah. So again, like I think they do a good job telling the story with what they have, but I kind of wanted some more of those.
Right. I think I finished the game being like, I want to know more about these people and like where what happens and
that was one of the other things I noticed. Like, there's so much stuff you can just like pick up, but all of it is, not all of it. The stuff that develops the characters because they have them, those have purpose. Mm-hmm. But like, there's just so much junk that you can just pick up and play with that has no meaning whatsoever.
Well, I hear you, but what's the other option there? Make it so you can't pick up anything except for the ones that have emotional.
I'm merely saying
like that you could pick up most things and examine them. I don't know.
I liked seeing some of the more static items were actually way more interesting to me than the stuff that, pick up a cup of noodles and throw it at the wall, or a cup, a mug, I don't know, stuff like the food supply, like gauges. Those were more compelling to me than the myriad of objects just all over the place that you could just pick up and fling around. I don't know.
We did see this in Gone Home too. Fullbright is really good at making fake products.
I kind of like that though.
But even beyond that, they're also really good at tying into real objects. Like early on, they reference Amazon in some way. Like they're smart about making it connected enough to the real world, and it's a pretty cool setting for the year 2088, I think.
And like Carnival Cruise Lines has become this like interstellar space tourism powerhouse or something.
Yeah, I didn't have any problem like suspending disbelief for that at all. Like
you felt like you were truly there, Dan.
No, I didn't feel like I was truly there. But I mean, the story, it's okay. I mean, like it makes sense.
Transported Dan to space.
I think there are some things they could have done a bit better with the story. But,
well, there we go.
Yeah.
Tacoma Gone Homa. It's all out there. I'm curious what people think about it. I'm curious what kind of splash it'll make compared to Gone Home. I think it's tough to top Gone Home.
That's just a difficult comparison to make, I think.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to make that same splash, but
especially
it does its own cool stuff.
Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version and listen to new episodes airing every Thursday. We cover big games on the horizon, games that we've just reviewed. We have long-form developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So check it out every Thursday.